Watching the light of day fade on the river, like forge sparks dying in slow motion, the river that had watered the grain of empires, I felt pensive and didn't want to go back to the party immediately. Dilva was lingering halfway between me and the crowd, and I thought I could sense what was coming. The mutual assertion that we would always be comrades and do all we could for one another, but that things could not be as they had been before. When she finally walked over and sat down, we were both on the verge of tears. I think between us we swelled the river. I imagined fish swimming out of the salty current, coughing noiselessly. I awoke this morning groggy, but comfortable for the first time in far too long. Before the rescue, the mercenaries had not given me any comfort beyond my barest needs in exchange for working their refinery systems at the heart of an armed compound full of mysterious strangers, silent guards with sunglasses and expensive rifles, local fighters, contracting with the remains of the old order. Here on a broad futon with large, colorful pillows and a broad, fuzzy blanket, waking up to the distant sounds of a new world, the years of toil seemed like a dark, torturous joke, God's own prank, for which I was now to see a glimpse of heaven. I shook my head and had to laugh. The guest house had a small but well-designed bathroom spangled with recycled bottles set in the wall that glowed where the morning sun shone through them. I had fun buzzing my beard into different shapes before washing the clippings down the drain and leaving a Freddie Mercury mustache behind, as it had been before I'd been taken. My hair needed work, but I contented myself with washing it, trying out their hair oil, which smelled like a summer garden after rain. Dressed in a new set of clothes, I was greeted with the aftermath of the party from the night before. 6 or 7 people of all ages were sweeping up together, chatting and laughing. I felt my cheeks flush as I saw a woman my mother's age stoop to grab the dustpan, and I must have looked foolish rushing over. Now thoroughly embarrassed, I sheepishly offered to help, and she and every other person swore up and down that they had it taken care of. The older woman insisted that I was a guest and should get a tour of the village before finding something to do. Dilva and her little son rounded the corner then, and he started when he saw me, probably because I was no longer the shaggy wild man that the raiding party had brought back. "You always did like to keep your upper lip warm," Dilva mused, hugging me in a comradely way. "Father always said, a kiss from a man without a mustache is like bread without salt," I quipped back. Then I squatted down to address the boy who ran, holding his mother's leg in apprehension. "Don't worry, my friend Hameen," I said. "It's still me, the Yeti Man." This was the name the boy had given me last night, when I was freshly recaptured and shaggy. I had paraded him around the welcome party on my shoulders, and he had shouted, "Make way for the Yeti Man!" He brightened at this. "Yeti Man," he said, and toddled over for a hug. We walked through the gardens of the village, broad common allotments stretching down in terraces toward the river. Dilva showed me how she had helped track the sun to map the site and built irrigation systems that ran excess water from each building's cistern into the gardens. The buildings themselves captured water every time it rained, filtered it, and reused it several times over, watering plants and flushing waste. I thought back to the long planter running the length of the guest house, the long windows sheltering banana and coffee trees. To someone who remembered, it just seemed like the sort of thing a luxury hotel might have done as an extravagance. But here it was just another beautiful necessity. The dwellings were single or double family units clustered around one another near the gardens, the meeting hall, the wash house, the workshop, the guardhouse, and the school. The gardens are a small project compared to the farm proper, Dilva explained. She gave her account of the outlying organic farming complex just visible beyond the houses, with its fields, pastures, and cowsheds, and the passive solar compost plant. She was full of exciting news about how they were creating new grain hybrids and had successfully made an exchange with a commune in the Chinese Free Territory, food and schematics for agricultural tech, tractors and drones. They had an excess of technical-minded people both living in the village and passing through, and between them the farm was so prosperous that its systems were being widely copied across the region, with the encouragement of everyone on the team. Murals and mosaics were everywhere, as common as solar panels. Amin would periodically rocket away from us to eagerly point out a bit of public art he had helped with. Here was a river of silver and blue marbles inlaid into the sidewalk, murals in tribute to fallen Yepiga and Yepije fighters and their foreign comrades, political icons from the past, gazing in surprise at the rising sun of Rojava, with Bookchin grinning as if to say, "I told you so!" During the war, these images and tributes were mostly graffiti, posters, or digital graphics. With the fighting off in the distance now, the village took these same images and gave them a more permanent life. I suddenly remembered when all this was just blueprints on a table in a safe house, being argued over endlessly between skirmishes, to see it now, to stand here in the midst of all this, and to know that I had not yet put even an hour's work into making it real was upsetting, yet fortifying. Out on the end of the ribbon of highway, the grain rippled and an agricultural drone took its temperature and a dozen other readings all at once from 10 feet above. Dilva turned with Hemin in her arms and caught me getting misty. I wanted to turn away, feeling old-fashioned, but instead I let the tears run again, for the second time in as many days. "It must be a lot," she said, understanding in every syllable. "It is," I replied. "There were times I lost hope, but to see you again, to see this place, to meet you," I booped Hemin's nose and he giggled. "It's unspeakably wonderful. But you've all done so much, I don't know where I would begin to repay." "Don't worry. You'll meet some more people today, and you'll find some projects to do. We're not here to present you with a bill for rescuing you. Without your help, we wouldn't have had as good a plan. You gave us an amazing starting place. You've done more with it than I ever could have dreamed." I fought to keep my tone even. "That's always the way," she replied simply. "We all added our touches, wherever we needed to or wanted to. You'll add your own touches too, bit by bit, like anyone. Nothing is perfect, but every addition, like every person, is precious." We looked at the golden grain, the thick green gardens, the shimmering water slipping away. "Almost time for class," Dilva said to Hemin, who brightened and whispered in his mother's ear. She nodded. "Uncle Yeti, will you come to my class and tell us war stories?" "Maybe, buddy. Some of the stories are very sad and scary. Do you think your class can handle them?" "Everyone I know has a fighter in the family. Some of them are dead now." He said it so matter-of-factly, but it was clear he'd given it serious thought. "And what do we say when we lose someone in the fighting?" Dilva prompted. "Martyrs never die," Hemin said. He looked at me and waved me over to him and whispered in my ear. "They do die, really, but Mommy said that we try to remember them forever because they fought to make the world better." "They have made our part of the world better," I said, "and they're doing the best they can with the rest of it. Let's see this school of yours." And so we set off down the path, Hemin pulling us along, birds chattering above, and a crowd of children and families gathering into cohorts for the school day. The school had a large building to itself, but since the weather was so fine, most of the classes were held outdoors on the school's playground, patio, and outdoor workshops, shaded by bright-colored awnings and young trees. Some little groups were playing with dress-up clothes, and others were playing a rhythm game, while some other students were working on an engine in one of the work pavilions, supervised by an elderly couple. There were no hoops to jump through. I checked in with the teacher, Dilva vouched for me, a couple taps of a tablet, and it was a done thing. I was given a seat under a tree while they called the children over. Those that wanted to hear came over, and the older kids drew up seating for the younger ones, chairs, beanbags, and cushions. The war stories were popular, and some of the grown-ups gathered to hear them too, putting aside their own projects for a time and clustered at the end of the schoolyard. I felt awkward at first, and when it occurred to me that I had no idea how this would go over, but when I admitted as much, every face reflected interest, acceptance, empathy, and care, or all of them at once. I loosened up as I went through my story. When I was finished, some of the younger students began to beg me to stay, but then the older students and teachers reminded them of their expectations, and they stopped, most of them anyway. When I was done, the students thanked me, some shook my hand, and they regrouped for other projects as the librarian arrived on a cargo bike, laden with books the students had requested. My stomach gave a growl, and I realized I hadn't eaten since the night before. With Himine at school, Dilva walked me across the square to the cafe, where we took cups of coffee and a little platter of buttery pastries, and sat together while I caught my journal up. Nothing was asked for the food, it just wasn't done. Meanwhile, I still tensed at the thought of taking without paying. The coffee was soothing and much needed. I relished the savory pastries and a jam tart, watching the day continually unfold in the little plaza. Around the square, elders were gossiping, one young woman was learning to weave on an antique loom, a group of young cooks were firing up a massive bread oven, and a trio of foreign fighters on leave were playing a ballad on battered instruments. It's an odd feeling, seeing the sun play on the river from a village I helped design, watching an old lover's young child learn and play. But oddest of all is the dawning feeling of home. "Do you need to stay and watch Himine?" I asked Dilva. "I like to sometimes, but he's fine. The teachers are there for him, and many elders come help out as well. They can get a hold of me any time they need. Where do you want to go next?" We took our dishes back to the cafe and opted to wash them ourselves to save a neighbor the task. The server asked us if we would mind taking some food to the buskers, which we did, and they thanked us in the clumsy but sincere Kurdish of weary soldiers, far from home. Then Dilva and I left the square on another mosaic pathway of glass in a dozen jewel tones to the workshops, large, warehouse-like structures alive with people. I marveled at 3D printers humming and drone repairs being done under the same roof as centuries-old embroidery and glasswork, each space shared but so replete with tools for the various tasks that no one was in need. I watched people come and go, reporting from and to remote projects, bringing in pieces to fix or finish or retrofit, and taking them out when they were done. The most fascinating to me was the shop air pressure, provided not by a compressor, but by a piece of medieval technology that used the flowing river water to capture the air in a tank underground. "We have to bleed off the excess every week or so," a technician told me. "We run a turbine and power any batteries in need of a charge, but you can do almost anything with it." I looked around, and every workstation, there were the expected electrical outlets, but also a discrete network of compressed air hoses, ready to hook extensions and tools on as needed. "It more than doubled our capacity with just a few days of serious excavation and plumbing work." I looked in on the fabbers in the print farm, and the potters teaching a detachment of youngsters to center the clay on motor-assisted kick wheels, a Japanese innovation that generated power with every spin. Every so often the wheels hissed, and Dilva explained that they too were on the shop air network, and anyone with a tired or unhelpful leg could use electricity or compressed air to keep the wheels spinning. Himine's school day was short, and Dilva went to pick him up, as I talked shop with some of the architects. A youngster who had only ever heard my name, having slept through the post-rescue party, nearly shook my hand clean off before introducing me to all the old hands who had stayed on. They filled me in on the latest project, an outdoor amphitheater for plays and concerts, with the seating cut right into the riverbank for a spectacular view of the water and the far shore. Maybe my captivity made me easy to please. Maybe the wine and hashish from last night's welcome party warped me beyond my own comprehension, or maybe, just maybe, we are building something worth feeling at home in. I understand Dilva's words at last. Each day, instead of struggling to find our own place in a system that doesn't need us, now we go out and make a place for one another. We build on the dreams of our neighbors, the children, the elders, and now I find a place waiting for me. I can think of no better gift than the feeling of belonging after decades, centuries, millennia of alienation. I feel as though I'm finally keeping a promise I made to my younger self, to the land, the air, and the timeless river that sparkles in the sun. For checking out my latest post-revolutionary journal fiction thingy-do. I really appreciate it. Please give it a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Many of my viewers are not subscribed, so please, I want to keep doing this for everybody. I want to enjoy this. And I want to get you back to this jam. And all my Ko-fi earnings for this video are going to be given to the Internationalist Commune in Rojava. So please go to my Ko-fi, link in the description. Check it out. Thank you so much.